Yo, what is going on, guys? Poizesto back with some more Pokemon Masters. Going to be going through the combat guide today, part 2 of the ultimate guide. You know what it is, get that clickbait in there. and yeah, so let's talk combat. Combat in this game is pretty cool. A lot of people think it's like very linear, and I mean, when you're playing the game starting off, you can literally just auto everything. You don't really need to think that much. But when you start getting into the harder content, these pieces of information I'm about to tell you will start coming into clutch. For example, right now, some of the big end game content is things like the Championship Stadium or Legendary Arena. When you start getting to these pieces of content, which will actually be a while, guys, I'm gonna tell you straight up right now, guys. The Championship Stadium is like the most end game stuff that we have right now, and even me, as a player that's been playing for 4 months now, I did struggle to kind of get through. I haven't even gone through most of it yet because you do need a large assortment of units in your box, and a lot of them do need to be like maxed out with sync grids, etc., to help you really utilize the different conditions and the different things that the matches require you to do. But these combat tips I'm going to tell you right now really do impact how the flow of battle works, and different things you need to definitely keep in mind. So we're just going to do something pretty easy so I can just explain it to you guys, what everything does and how everything works. And I'll see if I can use like a super diverse team just to give you a full concept of how things work. So this team might not actually be that bad, to be honest. So when you're going into battle, one of the things I would definitely recommend you do is edit your team and check the tactics screen. Now, back in the day, whichever unit was attacked was based on the highest amount of HP. So back in the day, Skylar would be the one that would be being attacked by the AI. But now they've given us this tactics feature. What this allows you to do is it allows you to pick which unit is actually going to be attacked in which order. So this is really good because it lets you put your tank in the first section, and then your support in the second section, and then your damage dealer last, because that is kind of the general order you want to set things up in, so that your damage dealer is the last one to live. And most of the time on the super hard content, that can make the difference between winning and losing, like a 3v9 mission to get that medal. So it's kind of important you always check your tactics and be ready and be mindful. The next thing you'll see up here is the gear section. Now, I honestly haven't really been farming gear, and I've actually only recently started getting into it because of gear isn't like, it's really good to have. Honestly, it's not really mandatory, but it's like super nice if you've got it. So what gear essentially does, it gives you free stats. So depending on what units you have in your team, it will give you free stats, and I will talk about how to farm gear and how to level it up in another video. But if you have a corresponding unit with that gear, you'll get the exact equal amount of stat. But if you don't, you get half of the stats. So for example, this fire bracelet gives me 34 attack to fire type units, but if they're not a fire type unit, they're gonna get a bit less. So they're gonna be getting 17 attack, as you can see. For example, if I were to put red instead of iris here, that is the main reason why I have been farming strength mainly. But how to farm it has actually changed recently, in the sense that you can now, it's actually way more forgiving than before. So this is like one of the best times to farm it, and it doesn't cost stamina, which is really good. But like I was saying, as you can see, iris was only getting 14, but as you can see, red is getting all these extra stats, and it does help. It does really help overall. Like, getting more special attack and attack means he's going to be outputting more damage. The HP isn't that much, and the HP is something you kind of want to be obviously keeping for like your tank unit. So for example here, if I had like a flying gear, I would definitely want to use the pin to be flying, so that my Skylar has even more HP than she has right now. So that's something to keep in mind. But the special attack and the attack can be interchanged depending on what type of damage output you're needing. For example, say your striker is special attack based, well, you're going to be wanting to use the bandana over the bracelet. So there's a little bit of optimization you can do here, but it's just stats, and it's, you know, not the biggest deal. I believe max level is 15, you get extra 50, so it does help, but it's not like the biggest deal. So don't worry about it too much in the beginning. You don't really need to be worried. I've beaten a lot of content without max gear up to this point, so it's not like it's mandatory for anything, right? It's just like a perk. If you've got it, use it, right? So we're setting up the team right now, and I've made sure to set up the tactics so that my tank is in the front row. I want to be using Haxorus instead of red, just so you guys get a feel of what it's like to use a free-to-play. This is kind of like a team you could build yourself earlier on once you get a little bit further in the game. Sync wise probably not, but we'll talk about that soon, maybe in the next 1 or 2 videos. I'm not 100% sure. So let's get into the battle and talk about some different battle mechanics. Now, one of the really cool things that they added in the most recent update is skip tickets. Now they're giving you a ton of these. So whenever you beat a mission and all of your sync pairs live, you are able to essentially run the mission as many times as you want until you run out of stamina without even playing it. So this is really, really key to, you know, farm these level up areas, because you can beat it once with your 3 sync grids and just use skip tickets afterwards. So it's actually, you don't even need to farm materials. Like how sick is this game now? Like, it's honestly so good. I just don't like the stamina system, but I think they had to do it because of the skip tickets. I feel like there's no way to win. Like it's just either or. It kind of sucks, but I do really like the skip ticket mechanic. So in battle, as you can see, we have a lot of different options. Every trainer has 2 attacks and 2 what they call trainer moves. One is normally a buff. So for example, Haxorus can give himself an X attack, and one is normally some form of like different effect. So she's also going to raise the user's speed and the crit rate. So let's go ahead and do that just to show you guys what it looks like. So you have those 2 different things. You have, you know, 2 buffs, 2 attacks for the most part. Sometimes it can change. Sometimes they have when they like mega evolve, they can change what their support effects are, but don't worry about that. So as you can see, every time I'm using an effect, my sync counter is going down by 1. Now, the bread and butter of this game is, as soon as you go into battle, just give yourself as many buffs as you can. Just buff your units, buff. Just buff everybody, yeah, X speed, whatever, you're going down, take flight. Let's go ahead and speed this up so it goes a little bit faster. Water Dreams, X speed, let's go, yeah, we're going in. And once we get to the coveted rainbow in the middle, it means our sync grid is ready. And essentially, when you do that, you pop it, and it's a ton of damage, and some units even transform. But the big thing that you'll be getting from the sync grid is an attack buff. Now this attack buff can stack multiple times, right? So once you get into the higher pieces of content, it actually just becomes a race to be spamming sync grid moves and sync grids, because once you do your sync grid special, what's going to happen is you're just buffing yourself more and more and giving yourself more and more attack to the point where you're just outputting so much damage that your opponent is not going to be living. And we're going to be talking about a couple of the different stats. So in this game, there's obviously things like it actually automatically autos. I didn't even know it does that. You can't infinitely like stay on the stage, which is pretty funny. But yeah, in this game, there's different stats, of course. One of the big ones I want you guys to keep in mind is speed. Speed affects how fast your move gauge is recovering. Now this used to be like the bread and butter back in the day. Having high speed was like super important, because you can still get away with it because there is things like Snivy's Energize that essentially refills your move gauge fully, which is such an insane trainer move, which is why she was so good back in the day, and she still is super good. But speed is one of the most important things, because with certain effects like move gauge refresh, essentially refunding the cost of that move, and having high speed, you can make sure you can keep spamming those moves. And because different moves cost different amount of move gauge, for example, Dragon Claw costs 2 and Outrage costs 3, if you get move gauge refreshes and you get lucky with how your opponents are attacking, you can essentially just keep on spamming attacks without even running out of move gauge. One of the best units in the game to be doing this with is Red. Like, Red has such high move gauge that I'm never running out of move gauge when I'm using Red, especially with his trainer ability giving him speed. He just never runs out of move gauge. So speed is one of the most important things to keep in mind. Critical hit as well. Critical hit goes up to level 3, and when you get to crit plus 3, you actually have 100% crit. So that is something to keep in mind. Crit level 3 is 100% crit, so whenever you're attacking with a unit, you are going to be critting 100% of the time. So a unit like Red, when he Mega Evolves, he actually gets an increase in critical. So that's what makes him one of the most strongest units in the game, being able to not only give himself die hit plus, but when he also evolves, he gets a free crit increase. So that again just shows you why Red is one of the strongest units in the game. And then obviously you have things like attack and special attack, and those is pretty much self-explanatory. Same as special defense and defense. Increasing those will obviously increase your survivability or your damage output. And that is kind of it, you know, in terms of combat. Early on, you literally can just auto everything. You don't need to worry about anything. But once you get to the higher levels, it's more or less about, you know, it's less about autoing and it's more about timing your attacks so that you're killing units before they attack, and also spamming moves, 1-bar moves, so that you can charge your sync grid, or your, what is the official term of that? Like the sync grid special is what I'm calling it. You know, the more you're spamming those 1-charge moves, you're decreasing that counter to do your sync grid special, and the more you spam that, the higher your buff goes and the more your damage output increases. So for things like those legendary arenas, a lot of the time it just comes down to using like 1-bar attacks, like with Swanna, who's one of the best supports, to quickly charge that sync grid so that you can get your next sync grid special and get an even higher damage output, and just keep stacking on the damage and stacking it and stacking it. And with her survivability with things like potion, master healer and things like that, you know, you can see how that kind of synergizes and why Skylar is another good pick if you're trying to invest in certain units. So that is kind of it for combat. Like I said earlier on, guys, it's not that deep, but when you start doing stuff like the championship stadium and the battle villa, knowing those techniques of spamming low gauge costing moves, like the 1-bar costing moves, and leveling up your sync grid, and, you know, keeping on spamming the specials over and over again to get higher levels of attack buffs is going to be key to winning. Other than that, using other different buffs, for example, like my mute build is an invasion heavy build that works very well with Misty support, because she also gives you invasion when she uses Catch Me If You Can. And essentially what that means is you can keep spamming Swift and getting a chance to like lower their attack and special attack, whilst also increasing your evasion potentially. And essentially you just can't be hit whilst you're healing. There's a lot of different ways you can go about battling, and it's pretty fun when you start unlocking some of the units in the game, such as like Leaf, who has special sync grid acceleration, or Elsa, who also has that, because they can actually lower your cooldown off the rip. Like Leaf does it when you pop her special. I'll go ahead and show you. When you actually use Leaf's sync grids, you will also lower the cooldown of your sync. I believe it's a passive skill. Yeah, so reduces the move countdown by 2 when a sync move is used for the first time. So there's actually a couple of different ways other than just spamming 1-bar moves to increase that, to reduce that sync move countdown. And that is what high level fights will come down to: spamming sync moves and just trying to survive as long as you can to make sure your striker gets in those big hits. And that's kind of it for combat. It's kind of long-winded. I could have made this a lot shorter, I think, but I'm trying to really emphasize that sync grid mechanics. I don't think a lot of people know about it. And that's about it for the combat video. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be doing next. Maybe the sync grids themselves might be a good transition here. I think that might be the case. So we'll talk about that next video in more detail. But until then, guys, it's been me, Poizesto, signing out. Peace out, guys.